Dear friends, good time of day. Andrei, thank you so much for such a great lead-up. It's a great pleasure. And I'm very happy that the ideas that we have been discussing with you, the ideas that we have been expressing, disputing, those ideas really are at the forefront, at the crest of waves. But this wave, it can fall upon us. It might be pretty, this wave, but this wave is a technological tsunami. And while this wave is approaching, there are many unsolved issues. Therefore, today, I would like to talk about what has been unsolved. I don't have any recipes for you, but I can suggest two. But that's closer to the end of my speech. I titled my presentation, The Moral Machine. This sort of ethical machine. Can it exist? Can a machine be ethical? Can a machine be moralized? Harari was actually raising this question. And they have been talking about this in MIT. They are still publishing the results of their global research about whether AI can be impartial and what is morale. What is this moral standing? Is it common for every single human being? But the moral standing is very important when we talk about driverless transportation, driverless mobility. As a matter of fact, when the roads of our world will be traversed by driverless vehicles, there will be accidents. There will be human deaths, I'd even say. No matter what they say, people have self-preservation instinct, and over 3% of car accidents are happening due to some sudden things breaking in a car. Mostly those are wheels and brakes. Of course, when the brakes are failing, specifically when the car is moving at a very high speed, drivers should choose whom to save, himself or a pedestrian, what to hit, where to steer a car. So a driver has to select the strategy of survival in a very short period of time, with the least damage, mostly to him or herself. Specifically when there's some sort of malfunction of the car, mostly brakes or wheels. That's the reason to car accidents. In Moscow, for example, roads are of very good quality, but a few people, dozens of people, are being injured due to sudden obstacle. What is a sudden obstacle? The car is driving and all of a sudden the road pallet, the asphalt is just breaking down and nobody can do anything. Or some concrete slab just appears in front of the car suddenly. That also happens. What I mean to say is that it is impossible to take everything into consideration, and you cannot teach a car the fact that the road just may crumble in front of the car, because that's happening. That has happened about a dozen times in the last 20 years. In the last 3 years. These are technical moments, technical points. They're important. The behavior of a vehicle, self-driving vehicle, in a critical situation is an issue. For example, when there's a sudden obstacle, like asphalt crumbling or a slab appearing literally out of nowhere, is something that is not a part of training of those ML models. Even Harari was saying about that. 2 years ago, in one of their speeches, he was saying that tech giants that specifically develop AI model should also engage philosophers who will teach the machine from a different angle, which will train the model to be more ethical. This is something that Yuval Noah Harari from MIT was claiming, by the way. And this is a double or even triple-edged sword. Let me highlight that it is impossible to avoid the situation when something goes wrong. You know this universal trolley problems. I know that tech giants are saying that our LiDAR has the frequency of 50 or 100 hertz. It's able to compute situation at a tremendous speed, and we will by all means avoid an accident on the road. Of course, there will be less accidents if the model is well trained, but there will be accidents nonetheless. And we must be ready to that, because all of the traffic accidents, specifically at the initial stage of self-driving vehicles integration, will be considered with tremendous scrutiny. Every emergency, every traffic emergency will be scrutinized, not only in terms of driving and conduct rules, but also in terms of human psyche. First issue is obvious: money. Of course, it is possible to secure the responsibility of an algorithm. It is possible to insure, buy insurance against some errors of the algorithm. So that people will get some sort of compensation in case of a machine error. I do not specifically approve this approach. Many researchers of AI suggest the solution, meaning that they teach them the model not just to technically drive, but also teach the machine to be ethical. That means that we imbue certain cultural and ethical points into the ML model. But ethics is not universal. Morale is not universal. Moral is not universal. So this is one of the moral machine experiments. MIT made it. It's available, this white paper is available at Nature magazine. And it says that we're all super different. MIT tested ethical specifics of over 40 million people. So, as a result, MIT has been able to define 3 cultural clusters: Eastern, Western, and Southern. Those 3 clusters are so different compared to one another, so that the model that has been trained in Europe, for example, let's take a country like the US. Not Europe. Let's not say Europe. Let's not take Europe. Let's take North America, the U.S. and Canada, which are culturally very similar. Those 2 countries could be considered a part of a Western cultural cluster. That model should behave differently compared to the models that will be trained for Czech Republic or Slovakia, because those countries are parts of the Southern cultural clusters, not to mention the Eastern cluster that includes China, South Korea, or Taiwan. The vehicle that has been trained for that regions should behave differently according to the specific features of the Eastern cultural cluster. The artificial moral dilemmas that different categories of people had to face in the framework of that research showed very curious results. Let me specifically draw your attention. Specifically, focus your attention on this diagram. The question is what the machine, what the model would prefer: hit a poor person or a rich person? So, the subjects, the respondents, are saying that poor people should be hit. Or, let's rephrase the question: should the model hit a dog or a human being? Obviously, the respondents preferred a dog to be hit, compared to, as opposed to human being. Or a criminal should be hit, as opposed to innocent person. But a dog should be hit compared to a criminal. And the most sacred issues, of course, the trolley with a baby. I mean to say that we're all different in every geography, and that makes an inevitable imprint on how we should train models for driverless cars in terms of ethics and morality. I specifically recall the presentation of the Yandex Taxi, Russian version of Uber represents, saying that algorithms should reject ethical norms. I would strongly disagree.
I believe things should be just the other way around. With the emergence of algorithms, with the advent of algorithms, we should learn how to teach and inform these algorithms with the basics of our human culture. And I believe that this is possible. You can do this, because if we do not pass on the legacy, the heritage of mankind that had been developed for centuries and millennia, it is quite possible that the issues that we debated during the first part of our tonight's session would come to the forefront. And that includes the use of AI and the methods of AI for criminal purposes and for waging wars and for committing murders. And if we do not start experimenting with teaching machines the basics of human cultures right away. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. You can find my details at this slide. On this slide, you can call me, you can write to me, and I'm prepared to talk to you, to discuss with you for an hour or two on this topic, because I believe that this is a very important and critical topic, a trigger really for further development of our civilization. And if we do not pay due attention to this or neglect this, I'm afraid this will start snowballing, and this would lead us astray. Thank you.